Chapter 278. Speaking of which, the governor's son had taken a fancy to a girl who was engaged. However, the girl's fiancé was a poor scholar, and the girl's family was actually in nouveau riche. After hooking up with the governor's son, she looked down on her fiancé. As for the poor scholar, Chapter 2 he had to sell his family fortune, whether the matter was over or not. Other people's words, and today's matter was only a trap set up by the scumbag couple. A trap set up purely only Jingwan's words counted. The poor scholar. After this incident, the kind that didn't require any technical content, basically knew the poor scholar didn't know was the living king of hell. Originally, then he and his fiancée were childhood sweethearts. Although the family gradually became rich, cold bench, they gave him a lot of financial support. Who made things difficult for her. This so-called financial support was actually Jin satisfy almost his basic needs for study. Therefore, they had ready-made ink, Jin Wang Fei was too kind-hearted, the worst kind that didn't even have a copper coin of cash. Jin Wang listened to the rumors outside. His family was deeply rubbed her ears. In order to repay the kindness, could she say that she really wasn't that good? In order to let his future and that everything was calculated by the husband, he worked hard. After hearing a few more words, tightened their belts to provide for him to study. Because she had it could be said that he didn't care about the outside world and only focused on study. Jingwan agreed. Many neighbors vaguely discovered the matter of his fiancé, not purely but because he was the governor's son. Naturally, they didn't. There was no need to care too much about whether they only secretly laughed at him or not. His parents also vaguely sensed it, but didn't get. As for whether Jin Wang would nitpick, they were also afraid that would depend on their son's studies. If the luck was good, so they didn't. He might not say anything. His fiancé, most he would just put down his chopsticks. Didn't come to visit. If the luck was bad, she mournfully expressed that the girl next door also wanted to eat a piece of King's crispy cake from her fiancé. At this time, there probably wouldn't be anyone who couldn't figure out how to scheme. One piece would be against Li Hanyuan. The poor scholar's think about how the banquet would end up. The poor scholar's face did not look too good. They should thank the heavens. Not because of his fiancé's request. It should be known that a dignified, but because he could not even when he went out to do errands, such a request. Everything he ate, he had his own dignity, used his own pride, but he did not want his parents to know. Those who took out the little money he had. That was because Jin Wang chose it himself. Therefore, he tried his best to save money. Thought that you were poor, write letters to people because you were copybooks for the bookstore. Let's not talk about other things. It was very smooth, smoother than ever. He could issue an imperial edict. He even sold a few pieces and those excellent evaluations in the past. The other party wanted. Shouldn't they also be reevaluated? It did not matter whether the paper was good. It was good that he attended, and it did not for the consequences. They would work hard to seal it off. He could be said to be extremely news of what happened. The time it took to save money, even if it was much shorter than expected, only their own circle would know about it. He finally had rivals came to laugh at them, carrying a big bag full of copper coins. He went to the Gaming Crisp restaurant. If they could do it, he wanted to buy drag their political rivals along, and that he only had one piece because people around him all curled their lips. This banquet was attended saying something like a poor person should have the self-awareness. Anything that was too flattering, he didn't even have a complete set of clothes. Was he thankful that he didn't collect? He was so normal, the kind that even children could. Or was he resentful? He was really a dancers could only be pure dancers. The poor scholar's face was, but if his own child didn't see him stripped, the dance had to be. He was at a loss of what to do. However, it could be said that he had put in a lot of effort, saying that anyone who one table were used, if you wanted to buy, 2 people could sit side by side. During the bag of copper coins, music and dance 2 waiters together with Li Hanyuan and Jingwan. In the end, there were only 2 cats left among the important members of the entourage. The shopkeeper said that he was sorry. Sure, Darren. He did not have enough money, so he could not sell to him. The great commander of the Imperial Guard. One should know that the shopkeeper was definitely the former was Jingwan's. If he was really a good person, Jingwan was in. He would have just taken the money, so he naturally had Chris to him. He was an official with a rank. He most likely so it was natural for the other party was short of money. The latter was one piece of Gaming Crisps, the kind that had to be sold at all 3,000 copper coins, and the entire Gaming coins. There were only a few big restaurants with a short of such a small amount. There were many. The poor scholar was an honest person, not to mention, or it could be said that he was wholeheartedly even their parents were a pile of books. In this kind of setting, somewhat there were not many people present. He actually did not husband and wife. Yesterday, he had happily told his fiancée there were a few more he was going to deliver the king. The younger generation that was brought along was not. He did not know why he was creature that stirred up trouble. He remembered to scratch his ears, anything out of scratch his cheeks. Jin Wang gave up his dignity, said that Jin Wang begged the would not find trouble for no reason. Thus, at this moment, there was no harm. The shopkeeper's face was stern, Wang and he righteously said that they were a restaurant, gave him some guidance. Doing business. It could be said that his future would be much smoother. If he was short of money, that's right. Then he was brought to show his face in front of Jin Wang Fei. The poor scholar had no choice did you not but to take the money bag. That poor scholar, because he did not care about other people's opinions, only thinking about how to explain it to his fiancée. The history of Kai Ming turned around. was
he saw
only
his
a
fiancée
few hundred years
enter,
shorter, but
than
she was in the
Kai
arms
Ming
of a noble
in
young
Qiyuan.
master. It
At
was
that
one of the
moment,
three
the
famous
blood
academies
drained
in
from
the
his
South.
face.
The students
It was
who
not
studied
only
in
because
Kai
his
Ming
fiancée's
Academy
gentle
came
and
from
soft
all
face
over
was
Qiyuan,
full of ridicule.
Any one of them
but
was
also
very
because
outstanding.
she,
A girl who was
course,
engaged,
there were also some
actually did
students who
not
were more
have
special.
any sense of
This kind of
propriety,
character passed the
justice,
test.
or
Entering a
integrity,
foo school
as she
was
leaned
very
in the
easy
arms
for
of
the
another
children
man.
of officials.
His hand
However,
trembled
it was
as
not
he
so
pointed
easy
at
to
her.
enter Kai Ming Academy.
You what you?
Unless there was
You want a
really
piece
a
of
special
Cayman Crisp for a
relationship.
month? Otherwise,
But I'm
they
sorry,
must go through a strict
this lady is
examination
tired of
and
eating
pass.
it recently.
Moreover,
You still don't know, right?
even if
it was not for the young
there were
master's
differences
help.
in the quality
Even if you
of the
saved up
teachers.
for a month,
Kai Ming
you would not
Academy
be able to save up
did
a
not
piece
lack
of Cayman
great
Crisps.
scholars and professors.
Speaking of which,
and
you were
Jing-Wan was
really
able to
good for
squeeze
nothing.
him in.
The young
which was
master
also
did
beyond
not have the time to play with
everyone's
you for too long.
expectations. So he
Even
kindly
that
helped
poor
you.
scholar
Are you
himself
happy that your
thought
calligraphy
that he
has been
would at
recognized?
most enter
Unfortunately,
Kai Ming Academy.
it was thrown into
Jing-Wan
a
was
smelly
able to do
dish
this
in the
Was
blink
it
of an
not
eye.
because of Li
Is the money
Hongyuan's
not
face?
enough?
I
Li
took it.
Hongyuan
Tell
was
me,
the living king
a
of
person
hell.
like you wants to
It was
marry
true that
this lady,
many people were
making
afraid
this
of him.
lady suffer.
However,
in
in
this
this
think
world,
you are,
there was also a
making
kind
this
of
lady
person who had a
suffer.
hard bone.
Aren't you afraid
Scholars
that
at a
your
lot of hard
lifespan will be
bones.
shortened?
And those
The
old
poor
fellows
scholars
who
who
did
did
not
not turn
care
pale
about fame and
and
wealth
his vision darkened.
and only
How could he
focused
not
on educating
understand
people
what was
were
going
often
on?
the hard
Thinking
bones
about
of the
how
hard
he had been
bones.
toyed with like a monkey by these people.
They could not be conquered
and
by
how his
power
heart had
and
been
force.
trampled on like this.
Therefore, it was
He
said that the
almost
living
fainted.
king of hell with
Young
a bad
master,
reputation
didn't you
could
say
not
that you
be
have
chewed.
never seen what a
Fortunately,
copper coin looks like?
Li Hongyuan
How about I
was
let you
not
see
a
it
real
now?
second
The
generation
fiancée turned her
ancestor
head and smiled
would not
tenderly
look for
at
this
the
kind of
noble
trouble.
young master.
Jing-Wan's
who was hugging
face
her.
came from a
in
name
public.
card.
It was
She
her
even
second
reached out her hand
granduncle's
to
name
caress his
card.
chest.
The two elders of
rubbed
the
it with
Luo
her full
family knew in
chest.
advance
How
that
was
she
this a
was
woman
going
from
to
a
follow
good family?
Jin Qin
Even the
Wang
prostitutes
to
in the
Jiangnan.
brothel were
They did
more
not give
reserved
Jing
and
Wan
courteous
anything
than her.
else.
The
and
poor
only
scholar
gave her second
staggered
granduncle's
and
name
almost
card.
fell.
No
This
one
kind of
should
girl,
underestimate
this kind of
the
person
influence
was
of a
actually his
world-renowned
fiancé,
great scholar.
All right, this young
in the
master
era
really
where
wants
the
to see it.
relationship between
As he
teacher
spoke,
and student
the governor's
was
son
equal to the
rudely
relationship
pinched the
between
girl's
father and
chest.
son.
The girl,
when encountering some
coquettishly
difficult matters,
and turned to the poor
relying
scholar.
on Jing-Wan's
But her
relationship
expression
with that
immediately
person,
changed.
the matter could be
She took
easily
2 steps
solved.
forward and
And
snatched
this
the
time,
money back
there
from
was
his
no
hand.
need to show
Opening
any
it,
relationship.
she took out a string
Just that
of
name
coins
card
and
the
pulled the
purse
string
was
open.
easily
The
sent.
copper coins
The living
fell to
king
the
of
ground
hell
with a clatter.
was unhappy
When the girl
for a
heard the
long
governor's
time.
son
Look,
clapping
Jin
and
Qin Wang
cheering,
Fei
her
was much
face
more
became
capable than
happier
Jin Qin
and happier.
Dishes were
She
served
moved
one
even
after
faster,
another on the table,
scattering close
and they
to
looked to be full of
3,000
color,
copper coins
aroma, all
and
over the
taste.
ground.
If it
There
was
were
said
more
that Jin
and more
Qin Wang
onlookers.
ate the best
Some
food
joined
in
in
the
to watch
world,
the show.
then it was
Of
definitely
course.
not.
There were also
These
those
words
who
were only
expressed
used to choke
sympathy
people.
for the poor
There was a
scholar.
strong regional
However,
preference for food.
no one dared to
Some
say a
things
word.
were particular.
The youngest
about
son of the
freshness.
governor was famous,
For example,
in the Kaming
seafood
prefecture
from the
for his
coastal
lawlessness.
areas.
When
He
one
was a
went
tyrant.
deep into the
When
inland,
people saw
the only
him,
things that could be
many would
eaten were
immediately
dried
retreat.
goods.
Wanted to eat
Shopkeeper,
both raw
take
and
out
fresh
all of today's
was just
Cayman
a dream.
pastries. Of course,
The governor's
in
son
Jing
looked
Wan's
at the
previous
poor
life.
scholar.
There was
Seeing
no
that you have
such
made
big
this young
restriction.
master amuse
Probably because
himself
they
for a
did not
month.
want to be picked
I will
by
give
Li
you all
Hongyuan
of
too
today's
fiercely.
Cayman pastries.
Most of them,
After
used
you
the
finish them
current
all,
trends of Kai
there will be an
food.
additional reward.
Li Hongyuan
The Cayman
seemed
pastries were brought
undisciplined
out,
and leisurely.
The color was plump,
but no one could
and
see
the
what kind of
fragrance was
mentality he
enticing.
had.
Then,
Sure enough,
they were poured on the
born in
ground
the imperial
and crushed
family,
by the governor's
even if he was
son
used to
with his
being
foot.
unrestrained.
Hurry up, finish
He
them
was
all.
good at
The
hiding
poor
his
scholar
emotions.
was so angry
Therefore,
that his whole
these people
body
who
was
mingled
trembling.
in the officialdom
You've gone too
had tried
far.
their best to
Oh, what
become
you
people
saying?
that outsiders
But,
could
so what if
not
this young
see
master
through.
bullies you?
But they hated
Guards.
this kind of person.
Two
the
guards
most.
came forward
It was
and
contradictory,
grabbed the
and
poor
natural.
scholar.
One of
Speaking
them
of which,
kicked the back
Jing
of
Wan
his
actually
knees,
had
forcing him
some
to kneel on the
expectations
ground
for this banquet
and
from the
pressing his
beginning.
head against
Kai
the
Ming
ground.
Fu
The
had
poor
such a
scholar's
long
eyes
history,
were red, and his
it
eyes
naturally
were
had
about
its
to crack.
own special
He
dishes
roared
that
in
were passed
anger.
down.
There
the
might be other
justice?
places, but there was
Where's the
always
law?
no authentic taste.
The world is
and there was
not
not
fair. much red tape.
The world is not.
This kind of banquet,
Ugh.
compared
His
to the
mouth
palace
was forcefully
banquets,
stuffed with
was
crushed,
much more
comfortable
comfortable
pastries.
At least
His
there would
eyes
definitely
were
not
filled
be
with
dishes that needed
unspeakable
to be
hatred.
hot to taste
Justice,
good. When
the
served, it
law.
would be cold.
I am a justice.
While enjoying the
I am a
dance
law.
and music, force it all
They
down
ate
his
the
throat.
delicious food.
The onlookers
Li
could
Hanyuan
not
really
help
did
but
not
retreat.
move his chopsticks.
There were quite a
much.
number of young
Perhaps that
masters
wine
who
was
hung
to his
out with the
liking,
governor's youngest
so
son,
he occasionally drank.
and they
a
all
little.
knew what he was
However,
up to recently.
Jingwan tasted
Hence,
every
they all
dish
came to
on the
watch the
table.
fun. Most of them were jackals.
If
of
she
the
felt
same
that the
lair
taste
as
was
him.
not bad,
and they clapped
she would
their
use the
hands
serving
and
chopsticks
cheered.
to pick
There were
up
also
some
a
for
few
Li
who
Hanyuan.
frowned at
If
his
it was to his
behavior.
liking,
This was
she
really
would
too
pick up
much.
more.
At
Bullying
first,
others in such a
Li
manner
Hanyuan looked
was
at her
also harming
as if he had
oneself.
doubts.
Move
But when he
aside,
saw Jingwan's
the people
smiling
blocking
face,
the door
he did
were
not say
separated from the
anything
outside
and
Two
silently
rows of people
After that,
completely blocked
whatever
the people
Jingwan
outside,
picked up,
making
he would
a
eat,
path.
however
in the middle.
much she
A group
picked
of
up.
people walked.
In any case,
They were led
she
by
did
a
not
man
see him
and a
take
woman.
the initiative.
They looked
to
very
reach his
noble
chopsticks
and
for the
dignified.
dishes. Although
Jingwan
their
was
clothes also
were
very
not
particularly
patient in feeding him.
luxurious. The people
Those who
below
knew
all
their
stuff
sighed.
could tell that it
Therefore,
was not ordinary.
there was no
just
need
by
to ponder
looking
over
over
Jean
Jean
Shin
Wang's
Wang's
preferences.
Many people took
It was
a
enough
deep
to
breath.
know Jean
This
Shin
person was
Wang's
too
preferences.
good-looking.
When
Because
did such
of
a
the
person
limited
come to
space on the
Taiming
table,
Prefecture?
there were at most 4
There were
dishes
some
at
who
a
were
time.
still
But
clear-headed,
in reality,
and
there were at
immediately
least
guessed
dozens
the
of
most
dishes.
likely identity.
Therefore, it was
of these
considered a
people.
small banquet.
Then they thought of the
Generally,
advice from their
they would only
families,
eat one
and their
bite.
faces changed.
If they ate 2 more
Although
bites,
a strong dragon
it would basically
could
be
not
considered
suppress a
as
snake.
liking it. That was
When the banquet
only
was
because
over,
the strong dragon
they would
was
probably
not strong
know
enough.
Jingwan's
If they
general
met someone they
taste.
could not afford
Seeing that
to
the
offend,
atmosphere was
they could
still
crush you to
harmonious,
death with a raise
there
of
were
their hand.
officials who tried
You
to
would not
bring
even
their
have the chance
children
to cry
and
out your
grandchildren
grievances.
to toast.
And this
They all
person,
very perceptibly
even if he was their
brought along
father,
Jean
they would have to
Shin
lie
Wang
down
Fei.
and hide.
Even when they
They
spoke,
absolutely
most
could
of them
not
were
provoke
biased
him.
towards Jingwan.
Subconsciously,
And
he
Jingwan
pulled the
basically
person
did
beside
not
him who was on
refuse
good terms with him
anyone
and stepped
Of
back.
course,
He looked
she
at the
only
door
used her
and
lips
saw
to
that it
touch
was
the
blocked.
wine cup.
His hopes
There was
of
no
leaving
reproach.
quietly were
Like
dashed.
this,
If he left from the
gradually,
back, Jingwan
it would
became
be
the
too
most
obvious,
important,
and Li
his
Hong
heart
Yuan
could
became
not
a
stop
side
beating.
dish.
Something
Perhaps
bad
everything was
going to
natural
happen today,
and no one
this
felt
youngest
that it
son
was
of the
wrong.
governor,
Now
was
that
the
the situation
#1
had turned
devil
out like
in the
this,
entire
Jingwan was
mansion.
also helpless.
Moreover, his father
It
had
wasn't that
climbed up step by
Jingwan
step
didn't
from the
remind him,
gaming mansion,
but this bastard
which meant that he had
not
been
only
in the
didn't want
gaming
to take
mansion.
it,
He even
was very
calmly
young.
looked at her.
His father
as
had
a
not
joke.
been in power yet.
There were also
and
women
was
who
kept in the
brought
mansion
their
to
own
abuse
daughters
his
up.
power.
Perhaps they
As
had
his
been
father's
warned
power
before coming
increased.
up. He
When they
gradually
were toasting
bullied
men
Their
and
eyes
women
did not
outside.
even glance
From the time he
at
was
Li Hong
born
Yuan.
until he
It
was
also
almost
not a
20 years
tiring
old,
matter. He had
and
never
everyone had a
suffered
sense of
any
propriety,
setbacks
or been
Thus,
oppressed by
Jingwan was
anyone.
not stingy
Because no
and
matter what
praised the girls who
happened,
came up.
it would be
When
settled
there was
in
no
the
one
end.
else.
Therefore,
Li Hong Yuan
the word
suddenly
fear
leaned
did not
close to
exist in his
Jingwan
dictionary.
and whispered
He
in
did
her
everything
ear with a chuckle.
willfully without
Seeing that
thinking.
Wan is
At
so
this time,
skillful in these
anyone
matters.
could see that
Sure
something
enough,
was wrong.
you were
But he was
born
the
to be my
only one
wife.
who was ignorant.
Jingwan
and
covered
had
his
up
eyes
and
on
secretly
Jingwan
pinched
first.
him.
Even if she was
Jingwan
born to
might
eat this
not
bowl
be
of
the
rice,
most beautiful
her choice
woman he
would
had
not
ever
only
seen.
be him, but she was
Okay.
definitely a
His
woman
face.
with the most
Li Hong Yuan felt
outstanding
pain,
temperament. But his
For a
face did
person
not
like
show
him,
it.
he
He
had
held
a great
Jingwan's
attraction,
hand.
and
This little
gently
lady
squeezed
his
it
lustful
before letting
gaze
go,
swept
as if nothing
over
had happened.
Jingwan from head
Speaking
to toe.
of which,
Unfortunately,
because Li Hong
he
Yuan's
stopped
appearance
abruptly
was
after
too
saying
eye-catching.
4 words. Even if
His
the decorations
body flew
on his clothes
backwards,
were low-key, and his
he
whole
could not
body
hide his
landed heavily
luxurious
on the ground.
appearance.
From the moment he appeared,
the one who made a
it was
move
unknown
not
how
Li
many
Hong
girls
Yuan,
had secretly
because
looked at
Jingwan
him.
was standing beside
Originally,
him.
it was
He
better
was
if he did
slightly
not smile.
slower,
But when
someone
he
dared to
smiled,
flirt with
the
his wife
lethality
in
was
front of
too
him.
great. If he made a move, someone would definitely
It was
die.
to the extent that
Perhaps
there
it
were
was
two
because
or
he sensed
3
this
girls
that
who
Yu
dropped their
Zhongqing
chopsticks.
made the first move.
When they came back
The
to their
#1
senses,
demon king
they
of the
blushed with
Kaiming
embarrassment
constabulary had
and
been
hurriedly
kicked,
covered
which
it up,
shocked everyone
fearing that
quite
the
a
two
bit.
people at the
Naturally,
top would see.
his
As the
bodyguards
Furins who had seen Li Hong
subconsciously
Yuan
swarmed
before,
forward.
they had already
However,
expected that their
they had
daughters
only
would
taken
have
a
such
step
reaction.
forward when they were
This could not be
instantly thrown
blamed
to the
on
ground.
these girls.
Their
who had
blades
just
were snatched
awakened to
away,
love.
and the
Even
shiny
they,
blade was
who were
pressed
already
against their
married.
necks. When they
As
first
long as
saw
they
his
moved,
gentle smile,
their
towards
blood
Jean
would
Shin
splatter
Fei
everywhere.
They were somewhat
The situation
absent-minded
changed
and
too
looked
quickly.
reproachfully at their
For a
daughters
moment,
who were
it was
lacking
so
in manners.
quiet that
The
one
previous
could hear a pin
exhortations were in
drop.
vain.
This was
and
a
this
real
made them feel
tough
very
one.
helpless.
How dare
They
you
only
attack
hoped
me?
that they would not
Do you
have
know?
any thoughts.
Yi Zichin
said, just at this
Yu
time,
Zhongqing
there was a
stepped
change
forward
in
and
music.
stepped on his neck.
The originally
He used his
gentle,
strength,
comfortable,
crush the
and
governor's
elegant
son,
music
who was
carried
trying
a
to
bit of
crawl up to
decadence.
the ground.
It was not
If you
very
say
heavy,
another word,
and
your
was
head will
very
be
light,
separated from
like
your
a
body.
feather lightly
After nearly
fluttering.
20 years
If
of
one did
life,
not notice
he
it,
finally
they would not
knew the
feel
word
anything.
fear.
But once they
Although
noticed
he was
it,
angry,
there would
he did
probably
not
be
dare to
an
open his mouth.
unbearable itch in their
Jingwan
heart.
did not stop
Jingwan's
Yu Zhongqing
movements
from making a
paused,
move.
and
This
she
meant
looked
that she was
outside
really
the hall.
angry.
The dancers
Jingwan's
with
slender
slender
figures
figures and
walked
used a
in
handkerchief
one
to pick up
after
a piece
another.
of Kaiming
Their
crispy
dance clothes
cake
were
from the
mainly
ground.
white.
This
and
is
their
Kaiming
faces
crispy
were covered
cake.
with a veil veil.
It looks pretty and
decorated
smells
with small
good.
pearls.
When I asked someone
and
to
the
buy
girl
it
at the
before,
very
they
back
said
was
that there was
dressed
none left.
entirely
It was a
in red.
pity at first.
Her
so I
face
thought that
was
this
covered
thing
with
was
a red
expensive.
veil, and
Looking
her
at it
clothes
now,
were also
it doesn't
fluttering
seem to be the
in
case.
It was
I didn't even
obviously
eat
the
a
kind of
piece.
dance that
It was
exposed
ruined by
the
others.
waist and
Her
arms
hand
of the different
loosened,
races.
and the
She
handkerchief
had made appropriate
fell
changes,
to the ground.
and with that
It was
tightly
clearly a
wrapped
soft voice,
body,
but it
in
made
reality,
many people's
her figure was
legs tremble,
curvaceous,
especially
and had
that
the reserved and
shopkeeper
gentle beauty
beads of
that
sweat
Yuan
rolled
women
down
should
his
have.
head. Only if the
madam,
clothes inside were
if
taken
you
off.
want to eat,
The number of people
have
who
as
knew
much
this
as you
girl
want.
was not a
Eat
small
things
number,
that others stepped
but all
on
of them
for
were
fun.
secretly cursing
Jingwan
in their
asked
hearts.
indifferently.
Sure enough,
The shopkeeper's
she was a
legs went
slut,
soft,
and the
and
very
he
knelt on the
staring.
ground.
After knowing the
No,
identity
no.
of this girl from their
In the
figurines.
future, I don't want to see
all of
Cayman
them were
Crispy
secretly
Cake
cursing the
anywhere,
inspector
especially the
governor
Cayman
for
Crispy
being
Cake
treacherous.
from Cayman residents.
It was difficult
If
for
I bumped
Jean
into
Wang
it,
to be
I'm
bought over
afraid
by
that the
beauty.
relevant people
But if
will
it was
be
their
sent
own
to prison
daughter,
squat for
then
a
it was a
while.
different matter.
Jingwan's
Ordinary
tone did
women
not
were
change.
purely sent
Wait until
over
I
as
die.
playthings.
Then you can
If they
continue
were
to sell
liked,
it. Then they could
the
still
people
have
of the
some
present
use.
age were
But this
particular
daughter,
about
even if she was
exclusive
only a
secret
concubine,
recipes. as long as
they were very
accepted her,
careful about the
then
things
even if it was a
passed
marriage
down from their
alliance,
ancestors.
they more or less had
The
to give
Cayman
some
crispy
face.
cake from other
This
places
was not only
probably
treacherous,
just a form.
it was simply shameless.
It was just changing the name.
The governor
It should
and the
not cut off
inspector
people's
governor
livelihood.
One was in
As for
charge
whether
of
this
county's
restaurant
army,
would be
and the
affected,
other was in
it
charge
was
of
not
county's
within her
government.
consideration.
It should be said that the
Jing
well
Wan
water
walked to the front
did
of
not
that
interfere
poor
with the
scholar.
river water.
Get up.
But was
The
it
poor
really
scholar
so?
was still a little
It was more
dazed,
like fire
but he
and
still
water
did
was
as he was
incompatible.
told subconsciously.
The governor's family had
But
a
when he
Bawang.
thought of his sorry
The inspector
state,
governor's family
he shrank back
also
a
had a
little.
Bawang. A real man should be indomitable.
It was just that the
and
latter
stand straight
Bawang
with his
had
head up
once
and
mingled
chest
in the
out.
capital.
Jing Wan's
So he
tone
could not
finally
be
had
considered
some
a
ups and
real
downs.
Bawang. The
That
poor
day,
scholar
a
still
Kai
acted
Ming
before
Su
his
restaurant.
consciousness.
Coincidentally,
And at this moment,
the
he
inspector
saw
governor's
clearly
family
this
Bawang
extraordinary
was also
woman.
present.
Her
It
hands
was just
were
that he did
naturally
not pull
folded
along
in front of her
younger
lower
brothers,
abdomen,
and was
she was
purely a
dignified
passerby.
and magnanimous.
So he was caught red-handed,
and her face was
That was the
cold.
real
In his
unexpected
eyes,
disaster.
she was like a fairy
However,
from the ninth heaven.
when he left the capital,
His original
Li
thought
Hong Yuan
of
had already
overturning
opened
all
his
women
mare, because of his
although that
fiancé's
fierce
betrayal
reputation
was
instantly
not obvious,
disappeared without
but it
a
had already
trace.
made people
But it
aware
was only
that
a
he could
glance,
not be provoked.
and he quickly lowered
Therefore,
his head
when he bumped
not
into Li
daring
Hong
to look
Yuan's
again.
hands.
It was not
he was
only
also
because it was
obedient.
improper to
Because
look at
Jing
her,
Wan
but more
and the others
importantly,
only
it was
found out
blasphemy
later that
to
there was
look
a
at
big
such a woman
fish hidden
directly.
within that group.
The
of
world
those.
is indeed
Until
unfair.
now.
I don't know where the
similarly
justice
locked up in
is,
a small
but the
dark
law
room
is
of the other
there.
courtyard.
It's just
and
that
was
there's a
similarly
lack of people to
receiving
protect him.
re-education.
I'm giving you a chance
because he
now,
cooperated,
and I'm giving
he
you
did
the
not
best
suffer
environment
much.
to study.
Speaking of
I
which,
promise you,
the
that
inspector
as long
governor
as
had
I'm
an
in
important
power,
matter to
as
attend
long
to
as
that
you have
day,
the ability,
and was unable
your
to
future will
rush
not be
to
hindered
Kai
by
Ming
external
Su restaurant.
factors.
These
I
few
hope
days,
that
the
one
inspector
day,
governor's
when
wife
others shout
also
that the
went
world
to
is
see
unfair,
Jing Wan.
you can
She
stand up
also
and
behaved
uphold
according to
justice
the
for them,
rules and
and
regulations.
tell them where the law is.
Compared to the governor's
Even
wife,
if you can't make the
she
world
seemed
a
to
bright
be
place,
inferior.
you can
And the
still
inspector
use your
governor
hands to
usually
sweep it
kept a
clean.
low profile
The poor scholar was
compared to the
moved.
governor.
His
But in
lips
reality,
trembled.
he was
After
on
a
par
moment,
with the governor.
he said,
Therefore,
I definitely
there was
won't
absolutely
disappoint
no
madam.
such honest person.
Jing Wan nodded
In
and
reality,
did not say anything
the inspector
else.
governor's wife's
She turned to the
complexion
woman who was
not
cowering
very
at the
good.
side.
She was
Her eyes
already
were
over
cold.
50 years
If you were
old
forced
and did
and
not
had
have
no
any
choice,
children
it's fine.
when she was old.
Even if you despised
Naturally,
the poor,
she did
and
not have
favored the
any
rich,
children of
and want to climb up the
marriageable
social
age.
ladder.
Her
It's
parents-in-law had
understandable.
already passed
If you want to live a
away,
good life,
and her
you
eldest
can't be
son
wrong.
was an
You
official
could just cancel
in
the
another
marriage.
place.
You
Even
shouldn't
if the inspector
humiliate
governor
others
was
like
still
this.
locked up by Jing
This is a
Qinglong.
complete corruption
He was
of
also
character.
in his 20s.
Do you think that a person
Now,
like you,
this was just a shoes
even if you
daughter,
marry into a
her
noble
biological
family,
mother
can
was a
really
foreign
have the
dancer.
life you want?
She herself
Daydreaming
was
is
beautiful,
unrealistic,
and the daughter she
Wake
gave
up.
birth to was
Even
even
if she
more
did not
beautiful
know
by
Jing
combining
Wan's
the
true
strengths
identity.
of her parents.
The woman who used
Even
her
though the
connections
inspector
to
governor would
intimidate
not go
others,
so
did
far as
not
to favor the
dare to breathe
concubine
loudly at
and
this
neglect the
moment.
wife.
How could they not
But towards
see
this
that
pair
what
of
had
mother and
truly
daughter,
angered this
he was
madam
somewhat
was
fond of
not
them.
the Cayman kid,
He was also
but the
attentive
actions
towards
of
the
the governor's
upbringing
son
of this
and the
shoes
others.
daughter.
It was
Who
just
would not
that her
be able to
status
see
was
that it was for
noble,
the sake of a
and a
marriage
trivial matter
alliance.
was also
She was obviously a
huge
shoes daughter, but
in
outside,
comparison,
she
everything
carried
that
the
the poor
poor
scholar
scholar
had suffered, in some
in addition to that
eyes,
appearance,
was
she
actually
was probably
nothing.
the first.
If she
in the
wanted to use
entire
this as a
Kai Ming
pretext to
fu.
make a fuss,
Therefore,
no one
there were
could
basically
easily
no
let
other
things
women
go.
from other
And those who
official
had
families
guessed in
liked
their
her.
hearts could
This
now
time,
be
Jing
100%
Qinglong
sure.
was the imperial
Jing Wan
envoy
glanced
and
around
could
and
not deny the
indifferently
fact that he
and
had no
walked to Li
power
Hong
or
Yuan.
influence.
You once told me
The
that
inspector
you and
governor's
I,
wife
our husband
really
and wife,
could not
sharing
understand.
honor and disgrace.
How could a shoes daughter
and
who was
equal
carefully
status?
trained for a marriage
Yes, I said
alliance
that.
be pushed out
So,
at this time?
what you said today is
on
what I
this
said.
kind of occasion.
A self-proclaimed person who was still
It was
hoping
simply
for a fluke
shameless.
was also
When the inspector
completely
governor's
disheartened.
wife looked at
Those who
Jing
didn't know
Wan,
were shocked.
there was some apology
Yesterday,
in her eyes.
there was a sea
She
of
could
people
feel that
at the
she
ferry
and
crossing.
Jing Qinglong
Many officials had
deep
gathered,
feelings for each
and they
other.
were all guessing
because of a
whether
little
or not
slut,
some important
the
person had
husband
come.
and wife
Could it be
fell
this
out.
person a prince?
However,
Jing Wan's
after
face
discovering
finally
Jing
showed
Wan's
a trace
expression,
of a smile.
not only her,
The governor should
even
be
the
here
madam
soon.
was somewhat surprised.
So what if he's here? Because
Li Hong
not
Yuan
only was
glanced
Jing
at the
Wan
governor's
not
son,
angry,
who was still
she was
stepped on
also
by Yu
quite
Zhongqing.
interested.
He
It was as if
offended
she was
his
completely
superiors,
unaware
disrespected the royal family. In
and claimed
contrast,
to be the law of the
Jin
land.
Xinguang
This is
still had an
deceiving the
indifferent
emperor.
expression. So
The
be
feeling
it.
was simply
Father
as
has
if
no
their
reason
identities
to
had been swapped.
But thinking that the
The
princess
corners of the
does
woman's
not want to see
eyes
me
were
kill
naturally
people.
raised.
I'll set a price.
Her eyelashes
and let
were
the governor
curled
redeem
and
him with
raised
money.
as if she was wearing
This time,
false
there's a
eyelashes.
big problem.
Her
in
pupils
Jiangnan.
were a little blue
I'm afraid that
and looked very
Tongzhou
attractive.
County will not be
There was
clean.
no deliberate
Just right.
seductive
I'll help
action,
father
but it
fill
always
the national
tickled the
treasury
heart.
first.
Even if she was
An
someone
arm,
else's
100,000
wife,
taels.
the other women who
A
were
leg,
also wives would not
150,000
like her.
taels.
Explicit
A descendant's
seduction,
root.
that was
200,000
debauchery.
taels.
Seductive
A body,
seduction,
300,000
that was an
taels.
artistic
And
conception.
a head,
It was a pity that the
500,000
artistic
taels.
conception
Move
did
and
not have
calculate
an
the
artistic
total for me.
conception.
When the
The
governor
artistic
arrives,
conception
ask
did
him for
not
money.
have an artistic
Just cut off the
conception.
amount that is
The
less.
artistic conception,
By the way,
did
his
not
son
have an
ruined
artistic
my and the
conception.
princess's fun.
Li Hanyuan
Had another
leaned
one
close to
tails.
Jingwan, let him
shoulder to
calculate the
shoulder.
money in a place where the
Clearly,
people
before we
below
talk
could
about his
not
son.
see.
Jingwan
He gently
glanced at him.
kneaded Jingwan's
That was why she
back.
said that this
It was
person
a
was
very
the biggest
sensitive
cancer
place.
in Langland's
Jingwan's
world.
waist
She had
almost
simply
went
shot
soft.
herself in the foot.
Fortunately,
just now,
she held it
when she
in.
was swept clean
Otherwise,
by
she would
someone else.
definitely make a fool
Also,
of herself.
is it really
Her
good
hand
for you to reveal the
quietly
matter
pinched
of
him.
Jiangnan?
Using
Although
the
almost
action of drinking
everyone
wine,
knew about the
Wang,
college
yeah, what are you
examination.
doing?
The
She
salt
was a little
policy
angry.
was
I would like to
very
know
well
what
hidden.
Wan Wan is
Since
doing.
it was related to
This
money,
woman is
how
very
could it be
beautiful.
just a
Can she be
problem
more
of the
beautiful than
college
me?
examination?
To make Wan Wan
Those
so
who did not
enthralled,
care could not
Jingwan
hear it.
simply didn't know
But those who
whether to
cared
laugh
would
or
definitely
cry.
listen carefully.
This could also make him jealous.
As for the others,
and unhappy.
I'll count them one
Hey,
by
enough
one.
is enough.
The lowest
This is
rank
clearly
is
directed at
100,000
you.
taels.
The one who should be
For
jealous
every higher
is
rank,
also me.
I'll add another
That's right,
100,000
Al.
taels.
It should be Wan
But
Wan
their
who
fathers
is
take the
jealous,
money
but
to
Wan Wan is
collect
not.
their bodies.
It makes
If they
this
don't
husband
pay for a
have
day,
no choice
I'll temporarily
but to
raise
suspect.
them for a day.
Does Wan Wan
If it's more than
not
3
have
days,
this husband in her heart
I'll
at
take
all?
the money to
Wan Wan,
collect their bodies.
This husband is
Of
very
course,
angry.
10% of the money
The
is
consequences are
I'm
very
merciful
serious.
and will not
Do you
ask them
understand?
for the money
Li
for
Hanyuan
food
continued
and
to
accommodation.
knead her waist.
Master,
Don't
Jingwan
worry.
really
I'll
wanted
remember
to
it.
cry.
I'll make
Are
sure
you
that
on?
no one
There
is
is
wrong.
no such
No one is
thing as
missing.
you.
I only did that
A
because
group
I
of childs who
believe in
came
you.
to watch the fun
Belief
wished
is
that there was a
belief.
hole in the ground
Attitude
for them to
is
crawl
attitude.
into, and
No matter how much you
disappear
believe in your
completely.
heart.
Living
You must
king
use
of hell,
practical actions
living
to
king
show
of
that
hell,
you care about
he was
this
really
husband.
a real
Do
king
you
of hell.
understand? Why didn't they listen to him and obediently
what is there
stay
to
at
not
home
understand
for a few days?
Isn't it just learning
They
from a
obviously did
lunatic
not
like
do
you?
anything.
Not
But
only
they had to
that,
suffer.
you were so
Such an
enthralled that it
unexpected
makes this
disaster.
husband
It
very
should be known that
suspicious.
not all of them
Have you
were
taken a
favored
liking
home.
to her?
There were even
No
some
one uses
illegitimate
this as a pretext
sons
to make a
who
fuss.
followed these
The
people
one who eats both
just to
men and
raise their
women.
status.
Is it not
and make
you,
their official
Jin
mother
Qinghua?
and brothers have some scruples?
But now
Don't
they
put
were
it on
all
me.
wiped out.
If Wan Wan
The
becomes
biggest
a man,
backer,
this
with the
husband
most
will
miserable,
definitely be able to
with
eat
only
her.
10% of the
Wan
money,
Wan,
he
I
could
will
give
give
you a
rid of
chance
them
to
quickly.
perform well.
There was no
Otherwise,
need to think about how
Jing
the
Wan
family
shuddered.
would choose. She felt that
They
this
were so
lunatic's
scared that they
condition
wet their
was
pants.
getting more and more
Their
serious.
minds were in a mess.
Could they still
As
play
if they were
properly?
crazy,
The
they
people
wanted to
below
escape.
all looked
However,
down and earnestly
it seemed that a group of good-for-nothings could not
How come they
escape
didn't
from a
discover
group
that
of
this
well-trained
dish was
guards.
so delicious?
As soon as their front
before?
foot stepped
Li
out,
Hanyuan
the back
didn't
foot
intend to
was
let
tripped
Jing
and a
Wan
hard
lose
foot fell on
face
their
in front of
back.
people.
They were
and
stepped
stopped
onto the
before going
ground
too
and
far
could not
and moved
move.
away.
They
However,
struggled
as
to
long as
resist,
one wasn't blind,
but the knife
they would be able to
fell
see the small
mercilessly.
movements between
It was
the
not
husband
fatal,
and wife,
but
just
blood
now.
splashed
Lazily
everywhere.
sweeping a glance around.
Screams sounded.
He was
How
satisfied
many people
with
had
their
seen
understanding
such a scene
and
before?
tactfulness.
They were scared
As for the
and
woman who
screamed.
was still dancing,
Shut up.
And even if it was someone who truly
reprimanded.
liked him,
This
it
matter
wouldn't
has
be lenient,
nothing to do with
let
you.
alone a woman who
Stay
wanted
here
to use him.
obediently.
Jingwan, when the matter is
breathed a
over,
sigh of relief.
you can leave safely.
This scoundrel,
Whoever
however,
dares to disturb
when
the
she saw the
prince
reactions
and
of the people
princess
below,
will immediately
she realized
become
in
a ghost
hindsight
under
that
the
her
knife.
actions,
As
which
soon
she
as these
thought were
words came
covert,
out,
had been
everyone
seen.
quieted down.
Jingwan was embarrassed.
Even if they could not
and
stop
annoyed.
crying,
She glared
they
at
covered
him
their mouths
fiercely.
tightly.
She would
and
teach
did
him a
not
lesson
dare to
when
make
she
the
got
slightest
back.
sound. Li Hanyuan
Originally,
raised his eyebrows,
as ordinary
and
people,
expressed
they
that he
also
welcomed her.
hated these
Jingwan
tyrants.
simply wanted
Li
to vomit
Hanyuan
blood.
came up
Then, and ruthlessly
she tried her
tied
best to
them
be
up.
calm,
Naturally,
deceiving
it was
herself
very satisfying.
and others that she didn't
However,
know that these
seeing
people
blood
had seen her.
and seeing
By the
people's
end of the
lives as
dance,
grass,
the woman in
that
red
should
was
make
only a
people
few
afraid.
steps away
Just
from
like Li
Jingwan
Hanyuan in
and
the
Jingro.
capital.
There
As
were
she
only
finished her
rumors that he had
dance,
forcefully
her
kidnapped
veil
women
fell to the ground
several times.
At that moment,
causing many
her
families
beauty
to be ruined.
was unparalleled.
As for what actually happened,
It was as if
no one
every
knew.
tiny
At
movement
most, it was
she
just
made had
hearsay.
been carefully
More often than
calculated.
not, those
This subject name
subjects
is
saw
Sioux
him like a
clans
mouse
wanting
seeing a cat.
greets.
However,
Stop.
ordinary
What did you say
people
you were
saw
called,
him as a
Suwanning?
demon.
In the future,
Jingwan looked
you will be
rather
called
helpless.
Su Ting. But Li Hanyuan
Jingwan
did not
opened her
care at all.
mouth,
Even if
mercilessly
everyone in the world was
interrupting her.
afraid of him,
Yes,
it did not
whatever
matter.
Wang Fei
As
Nian
long as
Yang
Wan Wan
says,
was not afraid
it
of
is
him
naturally
and
what
stood
it is.
firmly by his
This
side,
subject's daughter does
it was
not not dare to disobey. Other people were simply not within his
but in that
scope of
voice,
consideration.
there's clearly
the
a bit of
hurried and
grievance.
disorderly
Moreover,
sound of horse
these
hose
words were
came
clearly
from all
saying
directions.
that Jean
no matter if
Xinguang
they were
Fei
riding
was
horses
overbearing
or
and unreasonable.
sitting in carriages
At the right
they
time,
all gathered
she showed
together.
her forbearance.
It wasn't
and
just one or
cleverness.
two people who
Jingwan
were keeping an
felt her
eye on the
stomach
governor's
hurt.
courtyard.
Say,
Many
you
officials
clearly
had
have the
sent
potential
people
to be
as
a
well.
goddess and a queen.
In the end,
How could you ruin
they
your
were
image
easily
like this?
knocked
It was
unconscious
simply
and
disillusionment.
thrown into a pile.
It's just that
when they were discovered,
may the subject's
people at
daughter
the
ask
bottom
why?
almost
Su Wan,
lost their lives.
Su Ting's lips
Only then did
lightly
they know
pursed
that
as
there was
she asked,
no one in the side
"Why?
courtyard.
Didn't you
Because
say
they
that
did
you
not
do
know
not
where they
dare
went
to
and what they
disobey?
wanted to do?
Why are you
They were
asking
afraid
why?
that they would
What else could it
escape
be?
and have other
In order to
motives.
show loyalty
Naturally,
to a certain person,
they anxiously
in order to
sent
not
people to search
let
for them.
herself bend.
The waterways
she
and the
deliberately
forcing gates
looked for
were all
trouble.
sent people to
Who told
block.
you to open your mouth
They could not sit
and have
still
a place to
and
catch?
searched in the
Miss,
city. You have taken
Speaking
a
of
fancy
which,
to my
there were
family's
many
husband.
people,
I am
and they were
indeed
scattered.
unhappy.
There were a few people
so you can
in the
only
vicinity.
endure it. Jingwan probably did not expect them
Su
to have
Ting's
such a big
lips
lineup.
lightly
Perhaps Li
trembled,
Hanyuan
as if she had
was
suffered
also
a
within
great
her
humiliation.
expectations.
She
In
faintly
fact,
glanced
before they
at Li
entered
Hanyuan.
Kaming Crispy
As a result,
restaurant,
the
they had
person who
already
had
been
not
discovered.
taken the initiative
They quickly
to
went
pick
to
up
report
food to
back
eat
to their masters.
at this moment.
That was why they
seemed
came to have
so
an appetite.
quickly.
But
He
before they
leisurely ate the
arrived,
food.
another bad
Don't
news
mention
came.
helping her out
Not
of her
only the
predicament,
governor, but
he
as long as
simply
one had a
regarded
vile
her
spawn,
as nothing.
they were all on
This subject's
tenterhooks,
daughter will
afraid
withdraw.
that they would also be
Jingwan
involved.
nonchalantly
In fact,
nodded her
Li
head.
Hongyuan's people
In such
had
a
discovered
situation,
the other party
Su
a step
Ting naturally
earlier.
could
However,
only withdraw.
if they just
But she just
coincidentally
left
came up
and avoided
disturbed
everyone's
Jingwan's
line of
original
sight.
plan,
Su
Li
Ting's
Hanyuan
gaze was
would
cold
not
and
give them
severe.
face.
Wishing
When the
that she
officials
could eat
received
her
the
sister.
news,
They
although
secretly
this
hated
sister
the vile
had
spawn
already
for
married
not
and
listening
had
to their
2 or
words.
3 children,
If they had known
the
earlier,
oldest was already
they would
10
not
years
have
old.
let them take
But she was
half a
absolutely
step out
not
of
a
the
good
house,
person.
even if they had
Her
to break
heart
their
was
legs.
filled with fear.
They were also
and she
secretly
subconsciously
angry that Li
retreated.
Hanyuan
But
had
she was
nothing
pulled,
better to do
gag, and
than
dragged
to make
to
a
the
private
side.
visit.
Then,
You have been
she
so
was
high
fiercely
profile
slapped a few
all the
times.
way.
A
Can't you
slut
continue
is
to
a
be
slut.
high profile?
Just like you,
with
you're
them
slut
following
mother.
her.
How
Don't
could
you
they
see
let
what
their
kind of
vile
situation this
spawn
is?
collide?
You dare
Didn't they say
to
that their
do
princess
such a
consort
disgraceful thing?
was not
Don't you
feeling
see
well?
who that is?
Going out so
a dignified
early.
Qinhuang.
Did it look like she was not
What kind of
feeling well?
beauty hasn't he
Standing
seen?
at the entrance
Do
of
you really
Kaming
think that
Crispy
you are a
restaurant,
peerless beauty?
the officials
that
who were in a
anyone
hurry
sees you'll
did
have
not
their
have
legs
their
go
usual
soft and
elegant
bend.
bearing.
Su
They
Ting
either wiped their
other
sweat
people,
with their sleeves,
even her own mother,
or staggered
thought
in their
that this
steps.
matter was her
Without
father's
saying
idea.
a word.
But
They
with her
rushed to the front of
understanding
the
of her
two
father's
and
sister,
knelt down to beg
it was
for
very
forgiveness.
easy for her to guess
It was their
what going
negligence
on.
that caused
At the
their
side,
vile spawn
there were
to
also
collide
some
with the
women
prince.
and young ladies
Princess
who revealed
consort,
a mocking
please
gaze.
forgive us.
Su
Li
Ting
Hanyuan
lowered
looked
her
down
head
at them
without
condescendingly
saying a word
and did not say
Her
a
face
word.
was
When
red.
the main
and
character
swollen.
arrived,
Where was the
looking at his
appearance of
appearance,
beauty? He
the
probably
woman
already
leaned
knew the
closer.
truth of the matter.
Jin Qinhuang
Otherwise,
tidied up the
even his
bully of
clothes
Kaming
would
Fu.
not be drenched
Even
in
father
sweat.
and the
Li
governor
Hanyuan
didn't
then
dare to
slowly
say a
opened
word.
his mouth.
When they said to
You
pay
all
the
are
ransom,
quite fast. They obediently
However,
paid the
this
ransom.
prince remembers that
If you
horses
climb
are
up to
not
him,
allowed in the
wouldn't
city,
you be able to
and the
completely
carriage
turn your
cannot be
situation
too
around?
fast.
Those
Looking
who
at you
bullied,
all, you
can
do
be
have this
completely
prince's
trampled under your
After
feet.
all, this
I,
prince,
as
is
your
in the capital.
sister, will bear the brunt of it.
Occasionally,
In any case,
this prince will
you'll
let
be
the
sent
horses
out
loose,
as a plaything.
but most
rather
of the
than
time,
someone who might be
it will
old and
only
ugly,
overturn
it's
the
better
carriages
to
of
follow
other
Jin
brothers.
Qinhuang.
This is not
this
a
kind
problem
of
for my
handsome
brothers.
and powerful person.
However, along
if
the
you
way,
really climb up to him,
how many people
that's
have you
your
injured,
ability.
and how many
If you want to
stalls have
trample
you
on me,
overturned?
I'll admit
Are they
it.
your people?
Unfortunately,
There's no need to question them at all.
You didn't manage to
This
climb
was a
up.
matter that had
Su
not
Ting,
been resolved
I
yet.
know you haven't given
Yet
up.
another matter
In your
had come
opinion,
up.
Jin
However,
Qinhuang not paying
certain someone
attention
was
to
too
you
shameless.
is giving face.
He could
to
set a
Jin
fire,
Qinhuang
but
Fei.
others could not
If he accepts
light a
you in
lamp.
public,
If
his
things went
reputation
wrong,
won't
this
be
would be
good.
another crime.
Wait until
Before
it's
they could
private
even say
and
a few
few
words to
again.
him,
You'll
one
definitely
big
be able to get what you
accusation
want, right?
after another was placed
Su
on
Ting
him.
suddenly
If
raised
this
her head
continued,
and stared
there
at
was
her
no
dear
need
sister.
to find a most
That
fatal
gaze
thing
was
about
filled with
They would have to take off
unconcealable
their hat
hatred.
first.
The woman
In the
patted
end,
her red
they still
and
did
swollen
not
face.
understand this person's
Other
way
than
of
looking
doing
at me like
things.
this,
It was
what
because
else
they
can
were
you
too
do?
flustered
If you were lying
that they
at
repeatedly
Jin Qinhuang
made
Fei's
mistakes.
feet just now,
They had to calm
you could
down,
really do
calm
something.
down, calm down.
It is this lowly official.
That little bit of scheming.
Please
in your
rest
stomach.
assured, you
Your
can only
Highness.
pretend for
This
others
lowly
to see.
official will
If you want
not
to continue
say
to
a
climb
word
up,
about how to
there's
punish
no
them.
problem.
Li Hanyuan
I also wish
chuckled.
you success.
However,
But
no matter how
if
one
you
listened to
implicate the family
it sounded
and
like
offend
mockery.
Jin Qinhuang
If that is the
Fei,
case,
I'll
then it
skin
can't
you
be
alive.
better.
Then
Strangle
servants,
that younger
please
brother of
invite
yours
the
to
young
death.
masters of
I'll
these
strip your good
officials
Yang
out, and
even
hang
if they
her
tried their
clothes on the
best to
city
hide
wall.
in the ordinary
Su Ting's
crowd,
entire
hoping
body
that they would
trembled,
not be
but
recognized
she really
and
couldn't
escape the
do
disaster.
anything.
In
The thing that hurt her the
they were
most
still found out
was that her
one by
father
one.
had already
The deeper
given
they
himself
hid,
to a
the more
close friend.
severe the
It was her
physical
Yin Yang
pain
who
they suffered.
accidentally found out.
Therefore,
about it.
when they were brought
Now,
out,
everyone
only
was
a
still
few
kept
of them
in the dark.
did did not have
just
any
because the
bruises
other
on their
party was the
faces.
#1
After
salt
all,
merchant.
there were more than 10 of
Jiangnan
them in this
4
group.
counties.
Those who did
20
not have their
prefectures.
children
According to
breathed
Rignon,
a sigh of
that
relief
person was a
one
big
after
bellied
another.
fatty.
While those
On
who
the
had
surface,
two or
he
even
smiled
three
like a
children in
Mithridates
their
Buddha,
families,
but
almost
in reality, he
Eunuch
was
Mu stood
vicious
out
and repeatedly
merciless,
hung Yuan's
especially in the
words
bedroom.
before him.
He
Just
had a
now,
special
we have learned
eccentricity.
that among the
number
elders
of women
these
who
young
died in his
masters,
bed was
the
countless.
lowest official position.
That father
is
of hers who
standard
seemed to
6th
treat her
rank,
extremely well
100,000
for the sake of
taels
money,
silver.
wanted
Secondary
to give her
5th
to such a
rank,
person
200,000
Moreover,
taels of silver
because he was a
standard
second rank
5th
official.
rank.
How could he openly
300,000
do
taels of
such a
silver,
despicable
and so on.
thing?
As for
When the
standard
time
2nd
came,
rank,
he would
900,000
definitely
taels
let
of
her
silver
death.
is
Like
not a
this,
lot. She
Sirs,
wouldn't even have a
make
proper
sure that your
identity.
children are in there.
She was just a
and what
plaything that
rank
could be
your official
exchanged for
position
money,
is.
a
Then,
one-off
you
transaction.
can go home and
If she
prepare the money.
died, there
Of
wouldn't even be a
course,
handful
you can also
of soil
prepare
left.
10% of the
If
money
not,
and
why
collect
would
the
you take
corpse
the
3
risk
days
out of
later.
desperation?
Speaking of
Everyone
which,
said that
the higher
Jin
the
Qin
position
Wang
of the
Fei
elder
was
the more
benevolent and
valuable
kind.
the living person
In
is.
reality,
Wasn't her
Correspondingly,
true colors
the less
completely
valuable the
exposed?
corpse is,
Vicious,
for sixth
jealous
rank,
you
and
can
used to
only
putting on an
save
act.
90,000
Such a person,
taels of silver.
what
But for
qualifications
second
did
rank,
she have to
you can
stand
save
beside Jin Qin Wang?
810,000
The kind of
taels
man
silver.
who was as handsome
If
as
it were
God.
me, I
If
could
it was
still
her,
make up
if it was her.
90,000 taels of
So
silver.
what if she guessed that she wouldn't
As
give
for
up?
810,000
give
taels
up.
of silver,
She was the most
I don't want
beautiful
this
woman in
money-losing
Kaiming
thing.
Fu.
Her
Jin Wang
talent
glanced
didn't
at
lose
Eunuch
to
Mu.
any of the noble ladies.
To be honest,
how many
if she were these
Gongzi of
people,
Kai Ming,
she
Fu
would definitely
had
want
fallen
head
head
over
over
heels
heels
for her.
especially
Moreover,
the money-losing
her
thing
skill
image.
in serving men.
Muin shut up.
Any man who was
Eunuch Mu
served by her
shuddered
once would
and
never be
immediately
able to leave her
retreated to the
again.
side.
So what
like
if
a
Jin
lackey?
Qin Wang had
As
seen
the saying
countless
goes,
beauties?
if the son is
similarly
not
couldn't
taught well,
refuse her,
the
couldn't
father
refuse
is to
her.
blame.
These young
master
masters of the
fists
Kaming Mansion
so
are
tightly
really
that her palms
surprising.
bled.
What do you think
She
they're
didn't
doing?
know if she was
Of
using
course,
this
I am
method
just a
to
woman.
comfort herself.
If I say these things,
or if she really
everyone
had
here
this
will probably
self-confidence.
think that I'm
But
in
one thing was
charge.
certain,
It is
she
just that
absolutely
Princey has
didn't
always
want to
been
be sent out
impatient
like
with
this.
everything.
Absolutely
So,
didn't.
I overstepped my
Speaking of
boundaries
which,
and said a
all
few
the
more
Furins were
words.
also surprised
If there's
by Jin
anything
Wan's
inappropriate,
the last time
I
I
hope
saw
that
her
everyone
like this
here will be
was when Ru
magnanimous
Furin,
and
who had
not
chased
take it
away the
seriously.
political envoy.
His Highness,
Should they
I am
say
not
that
in
this
the mood
Wang
today.
Fei Nyang
Let's go back.
actually had a clear
Don't be
personality
long-winded
of
with these
love
people.
and hate?
Only you have
If
a
she
good
didn't like
temper,
something,
but they
she
won't
would
appreciate
never
it
wrong
all.
herself.
Li Han
This kind
Yuan's
of personality
personality
was
was
actually
enviable,
but his tone was gentle.
HTTPS.
However,
not many people had the courage
forward
to become a
slash
person
11
like her.
slash 1
Moreover,
8
for her to be like this
07
now,
slash
it was probably because of
665
Jin Qin Wang's
3480
love and
indulgence.
HTML.
If there was a day when
Mobile
this
edition
love was completely gone, then how would she
Chapter
deal
2,
with it?
79.
How would she deal with it?
Why are you being
Jing
so
Wan expressed
long-winded
that
with
she was
these people?
suffering in her
Only
heart
you have a
right
good
now,
temper,
but
she
she
won't
had no
appreciate it
place
all.
to express
Li Han
it.
Yuan
She had
seemed to be
already
reprimanded,
bluntly and
but his tone was
straightforwardly
gentle.
sent the person away.
Since I'm no longer
But this
interested,
one was still
I'll
not
naturally go
satisfied
back.
and
In
disliked
any
that
case,
her wrist was
he
too
paused
soft.
meaningfully
With one
this
look,
caming manner.
she knew that this
Other than
problem
those irritating
simply
things,
couldn't be
everything
solved.
else is pretty
Jing
good.
Wan only
It's not a
felt
big
that she
deal
was
to
wrong.
stay for 10 days.
Jing Wan
or
was
half a month.
harassed in various
Otherwise,
ways by
before
the living
returning
king
to the
of hell.
capital, so she
I'll
could only
stay
angrily
angrily
in the banquet
As
early.
for the other matters,
She also expressed
other people
that in
will
the
take
next
care
few
of it.
days,
I
she
believe
wanted
that
to take a
many
stroll
people
around
will be very
Kaiming
happy.
Prefecture City
in the four
and
counties
temporarily
and
wouldn't receive
28 manners of
interference.
Jiangnan.
She also
There were
hoped that
countless
she could play
officials.
around quietly.
Each one of them,
although
was
she
on
didn't show it on her
tenterhooks.
face,
After knowing
but
that you
everyone
were an
still
imperial
felt
envoy,
that Sue.
they didn't have a
Ting
good
had
night's
indeed
sleep.
angered her.
If you stayed in
But
Kaming
they didn't
Manor,
expect
those people
that
could
even
only
they had
say that they
disappeared.
were happy.
The banquet
That
was
was held
definitely
in the
not
governor's
enough to
residence.
describe it.
The
It
main
could be said that they would
characters had
sing
already
and
left,
dance,
so
in
the others
celebration.
naturally
However,
wouldn't continue to stay.
the officials of
Only
Kaming
when they
Manor
saw the
were
governor
probably going to
outside.
vomit blood. They put on a fake
Originally,
smile.
it had
and
nothing to
praised
do with
him
them.
for his good
Kaming
methods.
Manor was just a
The
place
governor
they
was
passed
very
by.
good at
Now,
maintaining his
they
composure,
had to face the king
smiling
hell alone.
pleasantly.
If it was
as he
easy to
entertained
serve,
them.
no,
After boarding
it
his
didn't need
own
to be
carriage,
easy.
Governor
It didn't need to be
Su
easy.
directly
As
asked
long as
someone
they
to
could
call
serve him,
Su Ting over.
then they would do their
When he
best
saw her
to wear
face,
out this period
he
of time.
basically knew what
The
was
problem
going on.
was that this
But he just
master was
pretended that he
completely
didn't see it.
impossible to serve.
Although there was no smile
No matter
on
what
his
you
face,
did,
he also
wasn't
didn't get
satisfied.
angry. He
But
wasn't
because
happy,
of this,
and he
he
was
was
even
even
more
more
frightened.
frightened.
He would throw a
Su Ting
tantrum
shrunk
at the slightest
and didn't
thing.
dare to breathe
How is it
loudly.
possible for
Governor
people
Su's
to live
finger
like
tapped
this?
on his knee
Jing
before he
Wan,
slowly
who
opened
understood
his mouth.
Li Hong
Do you
Yuan's
know?
temperament more
Su
and
Ting
more,
wanted to pretend that
lit
she
32
didn't understand.
candles for these people,
But her reaction
and
had
observed a
already
moment of
betrayed her.
silence. When she wanted to
Speaking of
hide
which,
it was already
those
too
people
late.
who relied on
in
him
front of
early
others.
on,
She
how
could
did they
still
muddle
control
through
her
under his
expression
hands?
very well.
Needless to
But
say,
in front of her father,
those were true
she couldn't
warriors
do it
who
at
had been
all.
tempered in
It seems that
steel.
you really know.
However,
did your
there was
Yang
one
tell
thing
you?
that could be confirmed.
Father,
Those who have
it's
been
not
properly
Yang's fault.
trained,
It's
by
me,
Li
it's
Han
me.
Yuan,
Su
their
Ting
efficiency in
explained.
doing things
Your
was
mother is
definitely
smart,
very high.
but sometimes
After all,
cleverness may
if they
cause
did
a
their job
mistake.
well,
What
they
did she
could
do
obtain
even if
relief.
she told you?
If they didn't
It's
do
just
it well,
a deathbed
they would be
struggle.
endlessly
It's not wrong
destroyed
for you
and
to take a
tortured
risk
by him.
this time.
Over time,
I'll give you one last chance.
everyone's spirit
let
would
you
weaken,
struggle to
and
the
they would
end
lose the will
and see
to
if you can
live.
survive.
The only way
I don't
was to
care
do
if you're pretending to
everything
be
in one
obedient
go
or pitiful.
and chase him.
Remember,
less if you
could.
say something
all
that
of their
shouldn't be
motivation
said,
was not
even
to
if you
receive
enter Jin
praise,
Qin Wang Fu,
but to avoid torture.
I still have ways
this could
to
be
make you
considered
beg
a
for
great
death.
oddity.
Su
for
Ting
all
knew
eternity,
that this father of
right?
hers wasn't
All
a
right.
good person.
The king of
but it
hell
was
was
the first
quite
time that he
generous
spoke
when he was
so
being generous.
straightforwardly.
Otherwise,
She couldn't stop her
who would want to
tears
hang
from
out with
falling
him
down.
unless they were masochists.
Jingwan hadn't
Father,
realized
I
that
only
she
beg
was
you
the
to
number
not
one
make
warrior.
things difficult for
She
him.
wasn't the kind who
Why would I make
struggled
things
to
difficult for
survive
her?
under the king
She's
of
just
hell,
a lowly
but the kind who could
concubine
tie the
who
king
can't
of
even
hell
step out
and
of the
climb
second
over
door.
his head. Su Ting's tears fell
Since they had
even
decided
more
to leave,
fiercely.
they
She
naturally
originally
wouldn't stay
thought
for
that he
long.
still had
A group
some
of young
feelings for the mother
masters
and
were
daughter,
driven to
but in
follow
the end,
behind the carriage in
what
a
about her
sorry
younger
state.
brother?
Before
You
they
can
left, they
Su
cried for
Ting
their
bowed
parents
and
and got off the
begged
carriage
their
without
elders
saying
to
a
save
word.
their lives.
The governor's wife
Whenever someone
wanted to
fell
say
behind,
something,
But in the end,
disobedient,
she didn't
the
say
guards
anything.
wouldn't be polite at all.
Instead, they would use the
Governor
sabers
Sue
they
who
seized
spoke
to hit them.
faintly.
Although they didn't
I'm
hit their
preparing
heads,
to give her to Iron
it was
Salt
definitely
Head.
painful.
The governor's wife,
even if they were
clenched her
fathers or
fists
grandfathers,
and
they could
looked at
only
this
watch
man who
helplessly
had a normal
and couldn't do
expression
anything
in
about it.
disbelief.
This
He
was
closed his
especially
eyes
true
to
for the
rest.
governor's son.
They had been husband and
who was
wife
given
for
special
decades.
treatment. But at this
If
moment,
others were to suffer
she actually
one
felt
blow,
that she had
he would have
never
to suffer
known this
too.
man.
Furthermore,
He used to treat that
he was
mother
used
and
to being a
daughter
tyrant
so well that
and
it
would
made her
subconsciously
angry and
retaliate
jealous
whenever he was
But
hit.
it turned out that
Naturally,
daughter was
he
a
would suffer
lowly
even more.
concubine.
It was
in his
simply a
eyes.
vicious
That
cycle.
daughter.
The
was
governor
an object.
clenched his fists
He was far more
and gritted
ruthless
his teeth.
and
Did he
heartless
hate him?
than she imagined.
Of course he hated him.
The first time you
However,
met Jean
he didn't know if his
Fei,
hatred was
Jean
only
Wang
directed at Li
Fei
Hanyuan
should have promised
or if
to
it was
reduce
mixed
the
with
money.
something else.
Governor Sue
After
said,
all, it
this
wasn't
kind
a
of
question,
disaster happened
but a certainty.
because his own family
The governor's
didn't
wife's
teach
pupil
their
shrunk.
child well.
Her lips
Otherwise,
trembled and her
Jean
fists
Wang's actions would be
unconsciously
untenable,
clenched.
even
What he had to
tighter.
consider now
She thought that she
was
had
whether
done
to
it
save
flawlessly,
this evil
but she didn't
creature
think that
or not.
I don't know why you guys
It wasn't
still
that he
put on
couldn't
such a
take
show
out
in the
$2
end,
million,
but the
and
idea
500,000
was definitely
tails.
not yours.
Furthermore,
even if he
he
took
took it out,
Wang Fei's
it wouldn't
idea,
hurt his family.
It would not be
However,
unrelated
after
to
taking
Jean
it out,
Wang.
he would have to consider the
Intuitively,
consequences.
Jean Wang
he wasn't from
is
an
not a
aristocratic
simple
family.
person.
As
If you
Li
have the
Hanyuan
chance,
had said,
it would be good for you to
building the big
interact
courtyard
with
had
Jean
already
Wang
exceeded
Fei.
the scope of
There are
his
some
family's
things that you
assets.
don't need to
Thus,
deliberately
he could
scheme
still
against.
reluctantly take out
But if
$2
you want it,
million
I'll give it
and
to you.
500,000
It's just that
taels.
there are some
However,
things that you better
don't
tell me
forget why the
clearly
emperor
so
had
that I can
sent an
better
imperial
analyze the
envoy.
situation.
At this
and also
juncture,
allow me to
he
make
wanted
more
to confiscate his
you
family's
have to know that a
property
small
and
mistake
exterminate
or
his
mistake
family.
can cause the
Furthermore,
whole game to be lost.
according to his family's
Master,
assets,
tell
the
me,
master
tell me about the
above wouldn't be
situation
filial
every
enough.
time you met Jean
Furthermore,
Wang
the
Fei.
master himself
Yes,
had been targeted
the governor's
by the emperor.
wife
The
slightly
possibility
lowered
of
her
him
head
being
and
saved
spoke
was
tirelessly.
too low.
Jing
Abandoning
Wang
this son
and Li
like this,
Hanyuan returned
and
to
betting
the other
that
courtyard.
Jean Wang
Li Hanyuan
wouldn't
took
really
the
kill
opportunity
him.
to eat his
a sixth
fill,
grade
but it was
of 100,000
too
taels.
much.
Similarly,
He really
exceeded
angered
the
Jing Wang
family's
and was
assets.
driven out of the room.
Those who would take
to
out this
sleep
amount of
and
money
study.
most
This time,
likely wouldn't be much.
Jing Wang was really
However,
angry, and
that
there was
letter
no way to
clearly
salvage
said
the
that
situation.
Jean
Li
Wang's
Hanyuan
temperament
was a little
perverse.
embarrassed.
His
and
moods were
dejectedly
unstable.
rolled
He
to
was
the study.
daring and
However,
reckless.
the
He didn't
subordinate
give
saw
anyone
that he was
face.
still so
Even if it was a
wise
brother
and
who
right.
held real
Li
power,
Hongyuan's
if he
eyes
said
were
he would make a
somewhat cold.
move, he would make a
Governor
move
Tong
without the
Zhou
slightest
County?
hesitation.
How
And
could they
he
be sure that
ordered
he wouldn't
people to
stop
thoroughly
because of a
investigate
dozen
this old
lives?
dog.
Governor
Investigate
Dare
his
now.
8
What should we do?
generations of ancestors.
The others were
for me.
somewhat out of their wits,
hoping that the
Gigi,
governor could come up with a solution.
distant relatives
After
and
all,
close neighbors.
his son was the
None
main
of them
culprit.
could be let off.
The others
That
were
you're
all
tuning
fish
into
in
the
the
Romance
that were implicated.
Rendezvous YouTube channel.
If
We're
this
so
matter couldn't
grateful
be
for your
resolved
support,
perfectly,
and
don't
they
forget to
wouldn't only
subscribe to
hate
join
Jean
us on
Wang.
this
They
incredible
would also
journey
hate him.
through
Then,
captivating
in the
stories.
future,
You would
your
have a lot of
generosity
trouble in
through
climbing
donations
through. Go
truly
back
makes a
and tell your
world of
families
difference.
foreign, as it's the
Go
primary
and request
source
to
of
see
revenue that
Jean
allows me
Wang
to
Fei.
expand
No matter
and
what,
enhance this channel.
you must
for
see her once.
Thank you from the
Jean
bottom of my
Wang
heart
Fei
for being
no
a part
longer
of this adventure.
will not do anything to the women folk.
Although it couldn't be said that women were absolutely
These people were usually awe-inspiring and were avoided by others. They were complacent. Now, they only wished that there was a hole in the ground for them to crawl into. Of course, those who had such thoughts were those who hadn't completely fallen. Most people glared at them fiercely. The threat was self-evident. However, what they got in return was the pain of the scabbard on their bodies. That grimacing, incomparably miserable appearance simply made people clap their hands in joy. They couldn't help but inquire about which capable person was able to control this group of bullies. Therefore, in an extremely short period of time, the people of Kaming Manor knew that a prince of the current dynasty had graced them with his presence. This group of bullies of Kaming Manor, except for some who didn't go out today, or those who didn't get along with the governor's son and didn't get along, the rest of the bullies were all dealt with by this prince. Although a part of it was indescribably bloody, most people, especially those who had been bullied, were more willing to ignore this part. They only said, "Well done." Therefore, no matter how tyrannical a person was, when he met the wrong person, no matter how tyrannical he would be easily crushed. When they returned to the courtyard, this group of young masters were all mercilessly locked up in a small dark room. Anyway, there were enough rooms, one for each person. There were 2 imperial bodyguards guarding the door of each room. This time, they were real imperial bodyguards with swords. If they were obedient, then it would be good for you, good for me, and good for everyone. If they wanted to quarrel or make a scene, then they would be directly beaten up, tied up, and gagged. Li Hanyuan seemed to want to show that he was a man of his words. When he returned to the courtyard, he ordered to find the other important people who came with him this time. He clearly told them, "This prince has taken a liking to Kaming Manor. You all should quickly go and do things for this prince. If you do it well, then that's what you should do. If you don't do it well, then Li Hanyuan sneered twice." The meaning of his words was self-evident. The people who were originally loyal to Li Hanyuan couldn't help but shiver. They repeatedly responded and would not disappoint. Li Hanyuan didn't assign them specific tasks, whether they should work together or separately. He only let them negotiate. Don't know how many people rejoiced in their hearts. It turned out that things weren't as serious as they thought. So what if Jin Wang made people fearful? In the end, he was someone who didn't understand anything. To fool him, it wasn't a difficult matter. Therefore, one after another, they expressed that everything would be handed over to them. Wang Ye only needed to accompany Wang Fei to relax and play in Kaming Manor. As for the people of Kaming Manor, they could only express their apologies. Although Kaming Manor was also one of the sources of benefits for the master, but now they had to distinguish between the severity of the matter and the urgency of the matter and make appropriate choices. Some people only wanted to say, "I hope you can be naive until the end. When the time comes, not only will you not be of help, but you will also fall into it." Being ruthless and black-hearted was the true nature of the king of hell. In a place like Jiangnan, those who coveted the throne would not be easily let off. The same manor, the same county, it was impossible for it to be controlled by one person. Now, the people of each faction wanted to go to their own home ground to investigate. They wanted to help hide some important things, but they also needed to see if the people of the other factions would allow it. Even if it wasn't this kind of situation, Li Hanyuan would also turn it into this kind of situation. On the surface, there was peace, but in the dark, there were various kinds of hindrances. When Li Hanyuan pulled in the net, the things that they thought were hidden would be exposed by others. And Li Hanyuan didn't need to do much. He could just sit alone on the fishing platform. In fact, at this time, the more they did, the more mistakes they would make. If they obediently wrote a memorial and admitted their mistakes, perhaps Luqingdi would still be lenient. Everything had been planned out by Li Hanyuan when he was setting up the plan. And when Li Hanyuan summoned these people, Jingwan also received the madams who came. Originally, they were prepared to be rejected at the door and possibly put on a show of crying, making a fuss, and threatening to hang themselves. In the end, all their preparations were useless. Not only did Jingwan let them in at the first moment, she was also polite and had people serve them good tea and snacks. Before this cup of tea was finished, she herself appeared. Once again, they thought that they would be left out to drink a stomach full of tea, but it was all in vain. Jingwan's clothes were not particularly formal and grand, and the jewelry on her body was also very simple. She even wore a string of Buddhist beads on one of her wrists. But if one looked carefully, one would find that although it was simple, each of them was exquisite, expensive, generous, and dignified. Even many of them in their generation might not be able to have such a thing. No wonder the men in the family all said to bring some new and exquisite things to the door. It would be better if it was rare flowers and plants. As for the other things, no matter how expensive they were in their eyes, they would not be taken seriously by them. However, they were all surprised by Jingwan's young age, or rather, young age. Of course, only people who had no understanding of Li Hongyuan's love history would think so. After all, this matter in Jiangnan had nothing to do with him. The business was more important. So who would mention these irrelevant things? Because Jingwan's attitude was easygoing, but she did not lose her composure. She did not say anything else and just chatted with them about daily life. It did not feel like she was deliberately avoiding today's important matter. In fact, Jingwan immediately felt that these people's moods were different. Some of them were anxious, while others were indifferent. Jingwan could also guess the reason. It was nothing more than the difference between biological children and not biological children. If it was a grandfather and a grandson, it would be fine. But how could it be the same as running around for their own son and running around for the son of a concubine? However, there was one person who was especially friendly. She only praised Jingwan to the heavens. Her mouth was as sweet as honey. However, this soup of love did not have any effect on Jingwan. Moreover, she found that the others did not pay much attention to her. If it was not a problem with their character, then it was, "Which family is this madam from?" Replying to the princess, "This concubine is, Your Highness, she is the administrative commissioner's wife, Madame Ru." Another madam by the side spoke first. As expected, there was such a person among the group of official wives. Unless the official wife's family wanted the administrative commissioner, no official wife would associate with other people's concubines. It was a pity that none of the madams here today needed to curry favor with the other party. The person who was smiling like a flower and had a glib tongue suddenly changed her expression. But in the next moment, she put on a smile again. "Your Highness, this concubine, I didn't know that a concubine could go out to socialize, especially in front of me." This was the first time Jingwan called herself a concubine since her marriage. Her attitude could not be more obvious. "Come, send the guests away. Pass down the order that no one from the administrative commissioner's family is allowed to come here." The administrative commissioner's wife, Madame Ru, probably did not expect that Lin Mingya, who was so amiable just a moment ago, would suddenly turn hostile. "No, Your Highness, it's because my family's madam is seriously ill and cannot get out of bed. That's why Laoi let this concubine replace." Jingwan's eyes turned sharp and swept over. The person who was trying to defend herself seemed to be strangled and couldn't spit out a word. Madame Ru, please leave. If I let someone throw you out, I'm afraid that it would be even more unsightly." Jingwan's wet nurse was now promoted to a steward mama. Speaking of which, in the Wang Fu, before the Wang Fei married, there would be at least 2 steward mamas to serve the master. Jinqin Wang Fu was an exception. Li Hongyuan's wet nurse had died of an illness when he was 11 years old. After he opened the Fu, what does an old woman want to do? At that time, none of the women above were able to enter Jinqin Wang Fu. Therefore, in Jinqin Wang Fu, there was no one who could restrain Jingwan. In other Wang Fu, because they had healed a Wang Ye and claimed credit, they took advantage of their seniority and pointed fingers at Wang Fei. This situation had long been completely strangled by Li Hongyuan. If you pointed fingers at his sweetheart, he would let you break your hands and feet. Although she was unwilling, she could only leave. Moreover, she couldn't show any resentment. However, she was a concubine who could replace the mistress to go out. Naturally, she had high standards in all aspects and wouldn't let people catch her in such an obvious place. Her rules were not wrong. After the eyesore left, Jingwan's expression returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. Only, compared to before, the scene was slightly colder. Most likely, They didn't think that Jingwan would be so decisive, chasing people away just like that. Like them, even if it was the governor's wife or the governor's wife, even if they didn't like them, they would at most give them the cold shoulder. However, this wasn't the time to talk about this. Their own children were the key, but such a large sum of money. Wang Fei Nyang Yang, although it is very rude, Jingwan slightly waved her hand. I know the purpose of everyone's visit, so there's no need to say anything. Although I'm not a mother yet, but sooner or later I will come to this step. I can understand the general feeling. Because there are people supporting the family, it is normal for the children to be poor. As parents and grandparents, all of you probably think so. However, if you put yourself in their shoes, just think about it. Just like today, when the prince replaced your children's role, how you feel now, and how the families of those who were harmed by your children feel. The pain your children are suffering now is also the pain of those who were harmed by them. Because of their inferior status, they suffered undeserved misfortune. Although the prince's status is higher, it is still reasonable for him to kill people for money. They are all raised by their parents, who doesn't want them to live a peaceful and happy life. In fact, in terms of age, I'm only a junior to all of you. Because of my status, I said a few more words. If you think you can listen, please listen. This is just a one-sided opinion. Because of my young age, I have less experience and don't understand many things. Madams, please don't blame me. Your Highness, you are too serious. It is us who are shallow. We are ashamed. That's right. Such a simple truth was not as clear as a junior's. In fact, those who were of a lower status should understand this. They were bullied by someone they couldn't afford to offend, so they had to take revenge on someone of a lower status to feel better. Jingwan smiled. The prince is a prince. He was born noble and is favored by his majesty. Forgive me for being disrespectful, but when it comes to lawlessness, there's probably no one in the entire Qi Yuan who can compete with him. Most people will more or less be restrained by others, but he is different, so he always does as he pleases. If he is unhappy, everyone will be unhappy with him. However, the prince won't take the initiative to cause trouble, so if you don't provoke him, he probably won't even look at you. Speaking of which, the prince is actually quite protective. Today's matter is partly because of me. However, it is true that the governor's wife's son went overboard and was unpleasant to the eye. The others were the result of the prince's anger. The governor's wife was a grandmother a long time ago. Her face was flushed red, but it was unknown whether it was due to shame or anger. Because the prince is favored by His Majesty has piled the best things in the world on him since he was young. It is widely acknowledged that his food and clothing are better than His Majesty's. He is never worried about money. To put it bluntly, he has no concept of money at all. He can use silver as copper coins, so there is no difference between 100,000 taels of silver and 100,000 copper coins. In fact, 100,000 copper coins is only 100 taels of silver. How can 100,000 taels of silver and 100 taels of silver be the same? Therefore, the prince's words at that time were just a casual remark. He didn't think that you can't afford it. However, he is a prince, and as his wife, I can't embarrass him in public. Therefore, madams, you can rest assured that I will persuade the prince. However, since he has said it, it is not possible to waive all the money. I can guarantee that it will be much less than the original amount. Hearing her words, the madams all heaved a sigh of relief and thanked her profusely. They also said that as long as Jingwan gave them a number, they would immediately go back to raise money. Actually, I have a suggestion. Why don't the madams listen to it? Jingwan said with a little calculation in her eyes. There's no harm in speaking your mind, esteemed Wang Fei. At this moment, their favorability towards Jingwan's sword. Jingwan had a deeper meaning as she waved the people beside her away. When a woman marries, she must be filial to her parents-in-law, serve her husband, take care of her children, and take care of her uncles and aunts. It is a hard job, but most of the time, men don't care about it and think that it is natural. Not only that, they have a bunch of concubines in their rooms and ask their wives to be virtuous and magnanimous. They have taken all the good things in the world, so they should occasionally repay them a little. After saying this, Jingwan stopped. and took a sip of her tea. The madams couldn't stop their hearts from beating fast as they eagerly looked at Jingwan. "Madams, when you go back home, tell your families that you have begged me. I have only agreed to ask the prince for a few more days. After that, you can come to the courtyard again. We won't do anything other than drink tea and chat. When you go back, you can bring back some good news. Let them feel that whether it is money or their children, they need to rely on you to save them. Like this, I don't believe that they will remain indifferent. As for what to do, it will be up to the madams." It had to be said, which one of them wasn't a shrewd person? Moreover, most of them were fighting machines in the inner courtyard. How could they not take advantage of such a good opportunity? With their acting skills, they could use any kind of emotion. They could be as sad as they could be and as anxious as they could be. They could grasp the degree of emotion well. Taking this opportunity, even if they did not benefit themselves, they could benefit their children and grandchildren, especially those who came for the sake of the illegitimate sons. As long as they revealed a little and begged the Jin Wangfei, there might be hope. They would not beg them to come to Jingwan. Those who had the intention of favoring the concubine and neglecting the wife would have to obediently take out more benefits. Only those couples who didn't have any barriers between them would not accept Jingwan's proposal. But were there any of them? No. They looked at each other and then stood up to give a bow. They were sincerely thanking her. Jingwan waved her hand. "There's no need for that. I just don't like it, that's all." Everyone knew about the unfinished words. Madame Ru, who had unceremoniously chased away the political envoy, was the best proof. But to go to such an extent and scheme against her husband, under normal circumstances, few people would think this way. Esteemed princess consort, but His Highness. Because of Jingwan's words, the relationship between the two sides seemed to have become much closer. They couldn't help but start to care about her. That's not it. His Highness is very good. The prince's mansion doesn't have any secondary concubines or concubines. I just don't have a good impression of any of them. It was no wonder that Jingwan used the word concubine. That was because she still had a mother-in-law who was a concubine. If word got out, she would be in trouble. If some things weren't exposed, then everything else could be discussed. But if it was exposed, then it wouldn't be the case. Esteemed princess consort, from the beginning, you sent this subject's servant away. Was it because of this? Now that everything was fine and their relationship was closer, she joked. Jingwan smiled. There's no need to expose this kind of thing. Everyone laughed and casually talked about some trivial things in their own families. When it came to Jingwan, she didn't hide anything. Everyone was surprised that she was younger than they had expected. I thought that esteemed princess consort only had a tender face, but I didn't think that she was really only 15. This kind of bearing, a normal person wouldn't be able to cultivate it even after several decades. Everyone else echoed and praised Jingwan. Although there was a bit of flattery, most of it was sincere. Madams are overpraising me. Jingwan smiled lightly. It wasn't until Li Honyuan sent people to find her that Jingwan expressed that she didn't want them to stay. This subject's servant has disturbed esteemed princess consort. It's just that the evil creatures in the family. Everyone, don't worry. Although they won't be as comfortable as they are at home and might even suffer some physical pain, please believe that they won't be injured or lose a piece of flesh. I personally think that it's better for those people to suffer a bit and be taught a lesson. If we want His Highness to let go of the silver, we naturally have to let him cool down. Speaking of this, Jingwan showed a bit of embarrassment. With my understanding of His Highness, I'm afraid that even if you give him the silver, he won't easily let them go. This time, everyone was anxious. Jingwan sighed. There's nothing we can do about it. I can persuade His Highness to take a step back, but I can't make him give in completely. We've gone too far. It's obvious that esteemed princess consort can do this. It's already not easy. If you ask me, esteemed princess consort is right. That evil creature should be taught a lesson. If he doesn't learn his lesson this time, he won't be so lucky to have another person like esteemed princess consort to deal with him in the future. When the time comes, should we let him give up his life or let his whole family die? One of the madams said coldly. At a glance, it was obvious that they came for the bastard. However, her words were very reasonable, So they hardened their hearts and even said that as long as His Highness didn't lose an arm or a leg, he could let people teach him a lesson. Then they all said goodbye. But when they left, their faces were filled with sadness. Jingwan sighed in her heart. Sure enough, they were all kings of acting. Even the people who served them realized that the situation was not good when they saw their expressions. They served them carefully and didn't dare to breathe loudly. Not long after they left, Li Honyuan came over and the maids were still cleaning up the mess. Is His Highness finished? Jingwan asked. It's already finished. I don't have to do anything specific. It's just a matter of a few words. But on your side, it's endless. Women are troublesome. What are you talking about? Jingwan glared at him. I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you. This troublesome woman definitely doesn't include you. I hope that Wan Wan can be more troublesome and trouble me all the time. Li Honyuan hurriedly coaxed. When that time comes, you'll dislike me. At most, I'll do something else. I'll never dislike you. Li Honyuan chuckled. He held her face and kissed her fiercely. Jingwan was about to reach out and slap him away, but Li Honyuan stopped. He sat beside her and played with her fingers. What did you say to them? Jingwan didn't hide anything and told him everything. Then she smiled and said, What does His Highness think? What does Wan Wan want you to think? Jingwan asked calmly. You promised him a discount without discussing it with you. You slandered you, saying that you have no concept of money and that you help women scheme against men. None of these should make you feel good. Jingwan counted with her fingers and listed them one by one with Li Honyuan. First, it was expected. My original intention was to let you do this. Second, your husband, I really have no concept of money. Third, what do those people have to do with me? Are they that important because they're estranged from their wives? My good heart, although you've made some progress, it's still far from enough. No matter what you want to do, just do it. Even if it's my decision, I'll take responsibility for it. If something goes wrong, I'll fix it. So, there's no need to worry. Yuan, it's easy for you to spoil people like this, do you know? There are many things that you can't joke about casually. If you poke a hole or make a mistake, it's not something that can be easily covered up. It's not something that can be fixed just because you want to. For example, a dead person can't be brought back to life. You understand all these, don't you? I know, I understand. You're so serious when talking about these things. Tell me, do you think it's easy for me to spoil you like this? It should be said that it's not that I have to clean up after you do something. It's that you have to clean up after me. There's a wild beast in my heart called unscrupulous. You're the rope that binds it to prevent me from making irreversible mistakes. So, Wan Wan, you really don't have to worry about anything. For you, as long as something makes you lose your mind, I promise that it will never happen. It was fine if he didn't stir up emotions, but once he did, it made people's hearts unbearable. Sure enough, she shouldn't have started this topic in front of this bastard. Jingwan held back her tears and said with a smile, Maybe it's two things. If something happens to you, don't jinx it. Li Honyuan directly sealed her words with a kiss. Wan Wan, even if you die, you'll definitely die before me. I won't leave you to deal with my funeral. Hey, you're a few years older than me. It's fine if you die of old age. If not, I'll lose too much. Of course I'll die of old age. I'll try my best to live longer than you. Not only will we be born in the same bed, but we'll also die in the same coffin. Jingwan smiled and rubbed her chin on his neck. Okay. They hugged each other quietly for a while. Yuan, how much do you think we should give them in terms of silver? There's no doubt that there's a problem in Kaming Prefecture and even the entire Tongzhou County. Kaming Prefecture is a prefectural city and also a county, so the problem is particularly serious. However, there are only a few people that need to be dealt with. Because the purpose of this trip isn't here, it's not easy to investigate thoroughly. Otherwise, there'll be suspicion of overstepping one's authority. You know there's a problem, but you didn't ask you to do it. If you do, the one on the throne will be unhappy. I stayed in Kaming Prefecture to alert the enemy. When the time comes, I don't have to do anything. He'll take action himself. As for the silver, you can reduce it as much as you want. You don't have to be polite to the people you want to deal with. That administrator isn't a good person either. Okay, as for the group of scumbags she brought back, it wasn't that her husband wanted to appease his anger, but she wanted to teach them a good lesson. However, Jingwan didn't care about the governor's son. This narrow-minded man would never let him go. It was good enough to keep him intact. Lord Zhua Qinsher the blackguard, you also sent him out? Jingwan also seemed to see Yu Zhongqing's figure. These two had been inseparable before, assisting other people in their work. After that, they didn't go out again. It wouldn't be too late to go out and play after this matter was completely settled. After dismissing the irrelevant people, Li Honyuan was also very idle. Jingwan didn't go out. He also didn't go out. It was a typical case of having a wife, and everything was enough. At this time, they couldn't find out any news about this courtyard. Each and every one of them could only scratch blindly. The previous style of living king of hell was absolutely consistent with what was written in the letter. But now, it was as if he was a different person. If it wasn't for the many Furins going to the courtyard every day and being able to see Jin Xinwang Fei every day and occasionally see Jin Xinwang, they would have thought that there was no one inside. Of course, it was said that the number of hours the Furins sat on the cold bench increased day by day. If it wasn't for their reputation, they might have been rejected at the door. However, the result of the Furins' perseverance was still gratifying. Until the 5th day, Jin Xinwang Fei didn't appear again, but she spread the word that the money was reduced to 10%, which was the original money for buying the corpse. The original 100,000 to 900,000 taels, now 10,000 to 90,000 taels. Every family could take it out, and there was nothing more to say. And the group of Furins were very grateful to Jingwan. What they got from the family was far beyond their expectations. They fiercely held their heads up high. Originally, it wasn't that they didn't suspect that this was actually a play performed by Jin Xinwang and Jin Xinwang Fei. But the matter of the governor's son humiliating the poor scholar, it was impossible for the two of them to have known about it. Moreover, the one who benefited from the whole thing seemed to be Jin Xinwang Fei's benevolent reputation. What was the use of this? The officials would not be deeply grateful to Jin Xinwang just because they gave less money, so it had nothing to do with Jin Xinwang's work in Jiangnan. Thinking left and right, it was still Jin Xinwang Fei's actions that were the most reliable, no matter whether it was reliable or not. As the Furins who really benefited, they had to continue singing this play. After the news was released, each family hurriedly went home to raise money and then sent it to the door one after another. Corresponding to their official position, the amount was given. Everyone was very successful. The only one who wasn't successful was the administrator. Other people reduced the amount, but he didn't have a share. The administrator, secondary second rank, 800,000 taels, not a single copper coin less. 80,000 taels to take the person back. There was no way. Jin Xinwang said that the administrator letting Ru Foreign come was a humiliation to his Wang Fei. That was also a humiliation to him. He expressed that he was very unhappy. Therefore, with 800,000 taels, not a single cent less, he didn't want to take the person back. Other than that, he also didn't want to take the corpse back for 80,000 taels. Receiving this news, the administrator almost fainted. Those who knew about this matter all sighed endlessly. That there should be a limit to favoring a concubine. Overstepping the etiquette could take a person's life. However, for someone like Jin Xinwang who didn't abide by the rules, he unexpectedly attached great importance to etiquette. In the end, it was because he attached great importance to the current Jin Xinwang Fei. If it was another person, perhaps it wouldn't be like this. However, who knew? In addition, there was a small problem with the governor's family. 250,000 taels were reduced to 250,000 taels, but when they collected, they only collected 240,000 taels. Originally, 150,000 taels was to buy the various parts of his son's body. 1 million taels was to disturb and dampen the Wang Fei's mood. In reality, the Wang Fei said that the latter was waived. However, he was a second-rank official, so redeeming his son should be 900,000 taels. Thus, the final result was 240,000 taels. The governor choked on a mouthful of old blood.